right, we are back. We are live.
Mm-hmm.
Podcast about movies. I am Jacob Barber, joined as always by Austin Pez. Austin? How's it going?
Oh, I'm good, man. How are you? I've had 2 good days off, and coming up on Easter, I get another one, so I'm feeling pretty good. Getting a little rested, playing some video games. Just doing the
Nice.
things I like to do. Yeah.
that's that's
Yeah.
always nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm looking forward to the weekend. Although it felt like the week
Hmm.
went by pretty quick for me. We had
Yeah.
an unexpected. Well, I wouldn't say snowstorm. It wasn't a storm, but we did get some unexpected snow on
Mm.
Monday, so I ended up having that day off from work,
Oh
which
yeah.
was unexpected. So even though I've had only a 4 day work week, it's
Hmm.
still felt long enough that I'm definitely ready for the weekend.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, yeah, we're always ready for the weekend. Everybody's always ready. Everybody's working for the weekend. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So why don't you introduce the topic this week since you kind of came up with it?
Yeah, it's one that's kind of been in the news recently from the faux pas that the Razzies did. And to put it into context, so we're talking about the Razzies tonight, and we're going to be talking about Razzies got it wrong, at least things we feel did not deserve either the nomination or the win throughout the Razzie history. But the Razzies have been in the news recently because they did this past year a special Bruce Willis category for all the straight to DVD stuff that he did. And then, well, it kind of aged like milk because then the news came
Yeah.
out that he's got, some like a brain disorder, like a disease that he's working through, and they quickly rescinded that and apologized. So a lot of egg on their face there, and it wasn't looking too good. I mean, not that he made it public, but still, it doesn't look good. The timeliness of it. But it just struck a chord as far as the Razzies used to be something I kind of followed and had a little fun with, but I feel has definitely peaked, especially about 10, 15 years ago. I think my point has always been when A-list celebrities such as Halle Berry and Sandra Bullock physically go to your little ceremony that you have in like a hotel ballroom and pick up the Razzies in person, you kind of hit the peak. It's probably time to retire it. It's probably like the joke's kind of run its course. It's like at that point, it's like, oh, we got two of the biggest actresses in the history of movies to come here and accept that. Yeah, maybe we should call it a day. I mean, when people like Tom Green show up to accept it, I mean, that's kind of expected, for Freddie Got Fingered. But it's like when you get Halle Berry and Sandra Bullock, all right, make some headlines, do your thing, and just be like, okay, I think we're finished. I don't know. What do you think?
I think so too. It seems to be more of a joke than anything now.
Mm-hmm.
Going through some of the nominations and even some of the winners, it's like, all
Mm-hmm.
right, well, you used to nominate things that actually deserved it, and now you're nominating Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani, and it's like,
Yeah, you're
um,
nominating political documentaries. Like those aren't even
like,
fictional movies. We're nominating actors that aren't, just people in documentaries. That's weird. And that
right,
kind of started with they nominated George W. Bush for Fahrenheit 9/11. I'm like, well,
right,
more documentary. I'm like, oh, so you nominated his archival news footage? Like that doesn't
yeah,
make any
it's like,
sense. It's like it's just they've gotten weird. When you go back and look at the history, you see that they've really picked on a couple of people consistently. I'm sure we'll talk about some of the people that they picked on kind of throughout
yeah,
the years, either directors or actors or actresses, whatever the case may be. And it's more of a personal vendetta than an actual, this person deserved it for some bad performance. So again, we always try to keep it positive here. We want to highlight some stuff that we feel like definitely is not in that bad category and shouldn't have been not, or at least the nominations have not aged well as people have
right,
come around on some of these movies and are not as timely. Something
yeah,
like that.
yeah. So, I just realized I'm wearing an angry Mickey shirt, and that's probably how I feel about some of these nominations. It's
Oh, right. Right.
merely
I was
coincidental.
I didn't really go through the songs and stuff, but I'm sure you can find some songs from some musicals or Disney movies that you really like. But I didn't really
Oh,
go look at
probably. I
those
didn't. I didn't go through
core.
those. No.
I'm sure if I looked at them right now, either musical score or worst original song, I'm sure I could find some ones that are near and dear to your heart. I'm sure. I mean, one I
Probably.
just pulled it up, and one right off the bat, they nominated "Big Gun" by AC/DC from Last Action Hero, which, as an AC/DC fan, that's one of their best songs ever. Like, it's awesome. That song rocks.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now as well. They nominated the Adams Groove from the Adams Family, and it
Ooh,
won.
Adam's Family. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like,
Like that's like a staple around Halloween now.
yeah, right.
Wild
I did
Wild
see that
West
they.
won in 1999.
I did see Jacob, you're the musical guy, and I'm not a big fan of this movie just because I'm not a fan of that musical in particular. But are you a Newsies guy? Do you like the
I
Newsies?
I do like the
Okay,
Newsies.
I did see Newsies wrapped up a couple of nominations the year it came out. I think for director, for a couple of actors, songs, things like that. So they had it out for Newsies. I'm
Yeah.
not a big fan of it only because my sister used to just play it over and over again. I wasn't a big fan of it, but
Mm,
that's more of a personal thing than against the
right.
movie. But I know that movie is fairly beloved amongst musical fans, at least for nostalgia's
It
sake.
is. Yeah.
Mm,
Um. Yeah. It did rack up a worst picture uh
mm.
nomination. Um. Didn't win that year, thankfully, because I don't think it deserves to be the worst movie of 1992 or of
No.
1991, nominated in 92. Um,
Hmm.
but um, yeah, I think we talked right before we went on. We're gonna just kind of stick to the
Maybe just
four
hit the
major
big, yeah,
categories.
the big four, kind of like the Oscars. Actor, actress, director, picture. Both nominations and winners. And to be fair, a little bit fair to the Razzies, most of the actual winners are ones that are pretty bad for the most part. And I wouldn't really object to that too hard. So a good majority of the stuff I highlighted on here are mostly nominations, but even to being nominated, it means they felt like it was bad enough to be nominated. So I feel like it's worthy then to bring it up for Razzie's got it wrong.
Hmm.
So yeah, we'll start with actress. Did you want to bring one up first, or do you want me to start on this one? Um,
Are you still okay? I
yeah, uh,
froze.
Jacob froze. Yeah, Jacob froze. Just a second. We'll get it back.
Um,
Hello. There you are.
are we here? Okay. All right.
We're live. We're
All
live,
right.
folks. We do it live. We're doing it live. It's the magic of live YouTube. And he froze again. So, because he's frozen again, I'm going to go ahead and go. I'll just go ahead and start talking about my first one, and hopefully his connection will clear it up for just a second. I think he's back, but I'll just go ahead and talk just in case it
Go ahead.
happens again.
Yes.
Yeah. So the first one I was going to mention that's it's really a blemish on it is they nominated Shelley Duvall for The Shining back in 1980 and have since rescinded it when they found out how much she was kind of psychologically tortured by Stanley Kubrick on set and sort of was traumatized basically into the performance that she gave, which again I think is an okay performance given the circumstances of the film. She plays scared very well. She cries very well.
Yeah.
She's freaking out like a kind of normal person would, kind of that out of breath, stammering sort of thing. So yeah, I think they rescinded it once they kind of found out a few more behind the scenes stuff. But then again, it was also 1980 was the first Razzies ever, and the winner eventually went to Brooke Shields in the Blue Lagoon, which again is weird because she was like 14 years old. Like it's like I don't know, it's like 14 years old, her first movie. That's a little strange to be picking on like a 14-year-old. I don't know.
Yeah.
to me personally, but it's like they nominated a few people: Nancy Allen, Faye Dunaway, Farrah Fawcett. I mean, you could pick on them. Olivia Newton-John for Xanadu, sure, but it's very strange. And they also don't like Talia Shire, as we'll talk about maybe with some of the Rocky movies. They're not fans of Talia Shire either at the Razzies.
Yeah, no, kind of. As I was looking through them, that was. I guess I didn't pay much attention to it because I just saw the on the Wikipedia page. It's got the line through it, so I didn't pay much attention to it until you had mentioned it like right before. So I went back to look through it, and I was like, oh, it's Shelley Duvall for The Shining. Okay, yeah, that makes absolutely no sense to me. So
Well, I mean, they also nominated Stanley Kubrick for worst director, and say what you will about his crazy directing style and how many takes he makes people do or whatever, but you look at the finished product, and that's an incredibly directed film. That's very much beloved by both horror fans and even casual horror fans who like that movie just as a psychological thriller. So that's kind of egregious and silly.
it is. But I'm looking. I was looking through it, and I don't know. I don't think I haven't seen many of these movies that have been
Right.
nominated. And then the ones that I have seen, I'm like, okay, I can understand that. Halle Berry for Catwoman, yeah, I can understand that. Lindsay Lohan for I Know Who Killed Me, yeah, okay, I can understand that.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot. I guess if there's one that I would disagree with, I guess it would be where was it?
I had a lot of the 90s
I think it
stuff
would
with Demi Moore. They picked on her for some reason. They nominated Demi Moore
Mhm.
for Indecent Proposal, for G.I. Jane, which is ridiculous. For Striptease, like that movie is kind of silly, but like she's good in it. They I don't know what they had against Demi Moore for a little while. They were really picking on her. They picked on anything that Madonna did, and again, Madonna's not the best, but she's also not the worst. And depending on what she's in, they seem to get this like, we were talking about a little bit again before we went air, like these weird vendettas against actors and actresses or directors or whoever, where it's just like they're just nominating anything that they do at all, even if it's not as bad as some of their previous works, just because they made something bad. It's just very strange. I don't know why. This is kind of why they got in trouble with the Bruce Willis thing, and they've gotten in trouble before with things like that. It's just like I don't think that's deserved all the time. Even people who make bad movies every now and then, everybody's got to get paid and get a paycheck. Some of them are bad, sure, but a lot of these actors and actresses are very good and mostly good in most movies.
Yeah, I found the one, and I don't know if you'll agree with me. This might be just a personal pick, but it's Whoopi Goldberg in Eddie. I don't think she was. I don't think
Oh,
she was
okay, yeah,
terrible.
yeah. Well,
I think she
her
fit
for
in.
Well, they nominated. It was a triple nomination for Bogus Eddie and Theodore Rex. Now, for Theodore Rex, yes, that movie is atrocious, and
Okay.
that's pretty much deserved. It's like one of these weird movies where she's like a cop teaming up with a dinosaur. It's a very bad kids movie, very very bad, and it's as bad as it sounds. It's like a guy in like a rubber outfit, kind of like from the show Dinosaurs. It's like the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not good. But yeah, Eddie is like, again, that movie is at best forgettable, but like it's not horrendous. You know what I mean?
Right.
And neither
Yeah.
neither is she in it.
Yeah. So I see that one. I see. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm not on board with like nominating and giving wins to people who aren't actors or actresses. Like that's not what they
Mm-hmm.
do.
Yeah.
So like giving it to the Spice Girls for Spice World. Like what were you
Yeah.
expecting from that movie?
Spice Girl, Spice World, and I've actually seen it because again, my sister watched it and I watched it with her. Look, it's dumb and silly, but if you are taking it seriously as an acting exercise with the Spice Girls, essentially, most of that movie is either them on a concert stage doing concert stuff or on their tour bus just yakking back and forth or doing, music videos. Like that's what most of that movie is. There's not a whole lot of actual acting in it. It's just kind of them hanging out. The only actual acting stuff is them on the tour bus, but it's not like a essential plot point or anything. It's just a showcase of the Spice Girls, and it's like whatever. Like, who cares? I understand it, but at the same time, even Anne Heche's Psycho the same year, there's a lot wrong with that Psycho remake. Anne Heche is not one of them. She's one of the better things about it, actually. Vince Vaughn gives a very strange performance. Viggo Mortensen's a little off, but Anne Heche is one of the better things about that Psycho remake. So again, there's weird choices there. Yasmin Bleeth for basketball, sure, whatever. Why not?
All right. So we got Jonathan in the comments. He said, "Let me tell you guys some Razzie noms at the past that don't deserve it." And then he brought this one up. Is that?
I'd have to make sure if that. I think that was the case actually. Yeah, for his score. Yeah, Ennio Morricone, who obviously is one of the greats, who I'm a big fan of. You know how much I like the Clint Eastwood westerns and did pretty much all of those. For a few dollars more and The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Yeah, he was nominated for The Thing, which is strange because that's a very haunting score. The dum 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 dum
Yeah.
dum dum dum.
I've only seen
Like
it the
it's
one
very
time,
it's
but the
very
score
chilling.
definitely stands out.
Yeah, yeah. So that's one where I don't know where that came from. I think they were hopping on the train where that movie was kind of critically panned at the time. The thing was, and did not become this classic
Mm,
till many, many years later, almost 20 years later. Started being recognized as one of the great horror movies of the 80s and really of all time. So it took a while. Maybe they were just jumping on the bandwagon. I think that's one of those things are, and even the Vince DiCola Rocky Ford music sticking on music, the stuff where they're doing the music during the final fight, during some of the training montages is very good. It's stuff I listen to just working out, you know. So I mean, again, it's very very strange, and they only did it for a couple of years, so maybe it was one of those things where it's like, oh, we're going after music. Maybe that's not the how many are you going to say that was overly bad? Most of the time, a bad score you don't even notice.
right.
Most of the time it's just kind of there. It's just kind of some kind of stock score. Most scores these days are very good. So,
Hmm.
even if the movie's bad.
Yeah. But and then he brought up one more, Jim Carrey for worst star in 1994.
Again, that's just one of those things where they were probably just, maybe they were annoyed by how him having, I think he had three movies in 1984. Didn't he have Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and
Ace
uh,
Ventura.
Ace Ventura or one of the other ones. Anyways, but yeah, like maybe they were just overloaded with Jim Carrey, but he was also just he was bringing in the box office dollars, and they tend to really hammer out. I'm sure we'll talk about Adam Sandler later, but they really hammer on these guys who make a lot of movies and the movies make a lot of money.
Mm,
And whether or not you're a fan of them, those movies are all good. So, and he's very good in them, and that's what most
yeah.
people fondly remember is Jim Carrey, especially in those mid '90s movies. So, yeah, that's a little silly.
Yeah. And if you want to hear my thoughts on those Jim Carrey movies, you can tune in to Rank 'em tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, I think a lot of people wanted to be on that episode, but that filled up very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So I don't have any more for actress. Do you have any
Yeah,
other people you want to
I
mention?
jotted down a lot more for actor than actress. So because some of the actress ones are just again a lot of them are just more forgettable than anything. They're not necessarily the worst. Like some of them are kind of bad, but just because they're stuck in bad movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, so yeah, we can go to actor because I have a few more for actor than anything else. I have one
Me
really
too.
egregious one from back in 1990 that I'll start with. 1990, Exorcist 3, which I'm a big fan of. I think that movie is great, and when people talk about underrated horror movies, 1990's Exorcist 3 gets brought up a lot as a really great kind of detective psychological horror movie. And George C. Scott was nominated, and he's amazing in that movie. Like he's fan freaking tastic in that movie. It's one of those movies he didn't want to do, and then he does the movie, and he's incredible in it. So yeah, that was one of the biggest ones that stood out to me. Is he's great in that movie, and that movie's just great in general. Yeah, I really liked Exorcist 3. So that was kind of silly.
Okay. I haven't seen it yet, so I
To put him in the same category as Andrew Dice Clay in The Adventures of Ford Fairlane is absolutely nonsensical to me. So yeah.
um. So yeah, I have to watch like all it. I've never actually seen an Exorcist movie. I own the
Okay.
original, but I haven't seen. And yeah, you think at this point I would have seen it, but
Yeah,
I
I would say actually you can usually get the Blu-ray set for like $20, and it's kind of worth it because obviously the first one is worth it. The third one is very good, especially amongst the horror community. And it's not so much like a gory horror movie. I think it's just like this detective noir psychological horror movie, like him tracking down this killer. Like it's actually really good. And then Exorcist 2 is batshit crazy, insane, bad, but it's a lot of fun. And Exorcist 4 is weird. So with Rennie Harlan, so it's just strange. So it's worth the set for the mix of good and bad, but it's all entertaining.
okay. I'll have to
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to look into that. The one I wanted to bring up is actually the most recent one. Um, LeBron James, worst actor. And again,
For
this is
Space Jam too.
yeah for Space
Yeah.
Jam 2. And again, it's the same thing as the Spice Girls. Like if he was a trained actor and this is something that he's been doing, then fine,
Mm-hmm.
I can understand that. But if you were expecting like a top notch performance,
Yeah.
then I think we went into the movie with different expectations. Now I'm not a big fan of the movie. I've said that. Do I think it's an awful movie? No. Do I
I
think
think
it's
the
a
movie's
great?
fine. I
Yeah,
think it's
exactly. Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
You know, I when I saw it, I just saw people crapping all over it. I saw it in the theater. I thought it was fine. It played well to my audience. I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was amazing, underrated, whatever. It was fine. It was entertaining, and I enjoyed it while I was watching it. It was all right, and
yeah,
he was
and
fine in it. There's nothing wrong with
exactly.
his performance in it. He's fine.
No, and now I can't speak on the other nominees from this year because I haven't actually seen any of them. Um, if I had to guess, I would say Ben Platt for Dear Evan Hansen might not deserve it because I mean he's been playing that role for I don't know how long on in the stage production. Maybe it's just he's too old to play a high
I
schooler
think that
in a
was the weird
movie.
thing is that he's like in his 30s or something, playing like a
Yeah,
15 or 16-year-old, which is just weird. And they tried to age him down with some makeup, and it just doesn't work. It just looks strange. So I think it's more of that than anything else. He's probably
right,
doing the exact same performance he did on stage.
right. So, but yeah, no, LeBron. I wouldn't call him the worst actor from 2021. Because he's not an actor. He's a basketball player, and
Mm-hmm.
once like the basketball stuff in that movie, I think it's
Mm-hmm.
great.
Yeah.
I think it's great. So, um, what he does do, he did really well.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
um,
The other one I was going to bring up, one of the people they picked on a lot, was especially in the 1980s and even a little bit into the 90s. Sylvester Stallone, one of my favorite actors of all time. If you watched our Tournament Fights Battles, he's one of my favorites. I love Sylvester Stallone. I think he's criminally underrated in a lot of ways. I think he's actually very good. They nominated him for damn near everything in the 80s, starting with Rhinestone. You got Rambo 2. He wins for Rambo 2 and Rocky 4 in the same year. Again, I think he's fine in both of those movies. They nominated him for Cobra, which Cobra is a strange cult classic action movie, but again, he's just being Stallone and he's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. They nominated him for Over the Top. They nominated him for Rambo 3. They nominated him for Tango and Cash and Lockup. Tango and Cash is one of his more quirky, fun roles because he's playing like this kind of nerdy guy. So I mean, that's kind of silly in itself. But yeah, again, they're just nominating people they just don't like, or people's
mm-hmm.
movies that they don't like, and not taking into account the fact that they're actually good for what they're trying to do in the movie.
Yeah, I was looking at them and I'm seeing all those Rambos and
Mm-hmm.
Rockies, and I'm like, why? Like I have no words. It's just why.
Why? Yeah, why?
Like I don't think his performance in the movies changed that much from the originals. So I mean, if those ones aren't being well, I mean, I guess when Rocky came out, the Razzies were a
the
thing,
the
but
the movies around him changed as far as the style, especially with 3 and 4, they became a little more
Mhm.
80s music video, a little more
Right, right.
flashy, a little more fast paced, not as deliberately paced. But his performance as Rocky has never really changed. It's just got, and actually his evolution of the character as he's tried to become more sophisticated per se, more of a regular, or more of a kind of plain this like rich guy when he's still just this kind of dude from Philly, I think is fascinating. So, again, the evolution of the character, I think he's been able to work that into his performance. So if you were a Rocky fan, you would know that. Obviously, the Razzies just don't like Rocky movies as well, maybe other than the first one. Yeah.
Another guy they don't seem to like is Adam Sandler.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a lot of 90s, 2000s, 2010s Adam Sandler movie. Damn near every movie he's ever been in gets nominated for something, which
yeah,
is strange. Even the good ones, he was nominated for Happy Gilmore. Why? That's one of his best movies. He's perfect as Happy Gilmore. Like his is exactly what that movie should be in that film.
hmm and The Water Boy, like that's a pretty good performance. Going down, he was nominated for
For
what
Big
was it?
Daddy,
Big
Big
Daddy.
Daddy's a
Yeah,
good
Big Daddy was.
movie, and
He
Big Daddy was
won for
nominated
Big
for worst.
Daddy.
Yeah, and Big Daddy was nominated for Worst Picture, which is insane 'cause that's one of his better movies that he gives like or it's just a different movie with him taking care of the kid and stuff. It's very straight. I mean, there's some wonky moments in there where it gets a little silly, but like overall, that movie is still pretty strong and one of his. I would put it easily in his top half of his filmography easily.
Yeah. One of the Adam Sandler nominations that I don't agree with personally is I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry. I thought that
Mm,
movie had some entertaining qualities to it.
yeah.
I don't so I don't understand that one. I will say the year that he was nominated for that one, they absolutely got it right with the winner, that being Eddie Murphy and Norbit. Um,
hmm
so sometimes the Razzies do get it right.
Sometimes they do. Yeah, sometimes, but more often than not, it's looking back on it, seeing what's aged. Sometimes don't. you know, I mean, nominating Tom Cruise for War of the Worlds, dude, he's being Tom Cruise in that movie. Like that's just silly. He's good in that movie. So weird, very strange.
um,
Well, I also
there
had
was
Bruce Willis. They gave Bruce Willis a triple win back in 1998 for Armageddon, Mercury Rising, and The Siege. Two of those movies I really like. Mercury Rising is simply forgettable.
oh,
Bruce Willis is one of the better things about Armageddon. He's one of the better things about The Siege. So, and I think Bruce Willis is genuinely good in that one of those last scenes where he's saying goodbye to Liv Tyler, like over the video. I think he's genuinely really really good. He still makes people cry to
mm,
this day. Like he's great. So yeah,
yeah,
and just showed that he can be great when he wants to be. Michael Douglas in '92 for Basic Instinct is strange because he's being just Wall Street Michael Douglas in that movie. So and
mm,
he's good. It's exactly what he should be. And it's what he's best at. And DiCaprio for The Beach in 2000. Look, The Beach is not the best movie in the world, but like DiCaprio's the furthest thing wrong with that movie. The
mm,
thing wrong with that movie is the plot and a lot of the screenplay. It's not DiCaprio in that movie. He's not what the reason why that movie's bad.
mm.
Because I saw it
I
recently, so it's fresh in my mind.
okay.
hmm
Um, I I don't agree with Ben Stiller being nominated 5 times
Oh,
or
I
for
had
five
that for like
movies in
Dodgeball and
2004.
Along Came
Yeah.
Polly. Yeah, he's great in Dodgeball. He's fan freaking tastic at Dodgeball, especially if you've seen Heavyweights and he's doing basically a reprise
Oh,
of his
it's
Heavyweights
yeah,
character, and it's fantastic. Yeah, but again, well, even nominating for Anchorman, he's a cameo in Anchorman. Like that's
yeah. It's not even a yeah.
yeah.
He's there in the fight scene, and that's it.
Yeah, playing like
So
the
it's a weird
Telemundo news guy. Yeah, that's strange.
yeah.
Yeah, but even Starsky and Hutch, like that movie's not the greatest. Like it's fine. Again, it's entertaining. It's fine. But like I would nominate either Owen Wilson or Ben Stiller in that. I think they're doing
Oh,
exactly what they should be doing in that movie.
yeah. Um, and that's the year that George W. Bush won because
Because of stock footage.
reasons.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
again, yeah, that's where it started to really go off the rails. I mean, nominating Ben Affleck for Jersey Girl. He's really good in Jersey Girl. It's one of Kevin Smith's more underrated movies. Um, Colin Farrell for Alexander. He's one of the better things about that movie. That movie's just a bloated mess, but it's not his fault. You know, just weird stuff there.
Yeah.
So,
and as I'm looking, even though the movie might not be the best in this particular trilogy, I don't think Tim Allen is bad at all in the Santa Claus 3.
in any
I
of the
think,
Santa Claus movies,
yeah,
he's great.
like,
He's great even in that third one. Even Martin Short is entertaining doing what he does. He's just working with kind of poor material, but he's trying to make the best of it. And yeah, the movie just has weird plot stuff and just weird kind of script stuff. But none of the performances are bad.
yeah,
Martin Short in that movie is, and I'm sure he was probably nominated. I didn't look at the supporting actors, but I'm sure he was nominated for that movie too.
yeah.
But yeah, Tim Allen's has always been great. And Tim Allen makes more good movies than bad movies when you look at his whole filmography. You know,
Oh,
between
absolutely.
those and the Toy Stories and Galaxy Quest, you know, he's made much more good stuff than bad.
I kind of had one more that I thought was
Sure.
pretty bad. Ben Affleck in Batman v Superman.
Well,
In,
they had a real vendetta against Batman v Superman too. Again, jumping on the bandwagon, nominating it for Worst Picture. I mean, come on! Of all the movies that came out in 2016, you're nominating BVS for Worst Picture, a movie that, you know, even the haters have to admit it looks gorgeous. It is beautiful. The score is excellent. The performances are good. You know, it's whether or not you're just vibing with what they presented. But even if you're not, you have to that technically speaking, it's a fantastic movie. You know, like even technically speaking, the only thing people have against it, I've found mostly is just they just don't vibe with the direction of where the characters are going, or agree with character stuff. You know what I mean? But that has
yeah,
nothing to do with the performances. That has nothing to do with the direction or how it looks. You know, so that's just whether or not you disagree with that. But yeah, BVS was I had that. It was nominated for actor, for
mm-hmm.
director, for
Oh,
Snyder. You know, that movie's well directed. I mean, you can't say that movie ain't well directed. Like, it's well
yeah.
directed. Henry Cavill nominated
Oh yeah,
for playing
I
Superman.
just noticed that.
Get out of here. Get out of here,
Come
dude. Come on.
on.
Come on. He's great. He's beloved. Even by people who don't like those movies, they admit this that Henry Cavill is a good Superman. I mean, come on.
He's my favorite Superman if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
I
mine
love him.
too. I'm just saying, even people that are Christopher Reeve people admit that Henry Cavill is a pretty banging, you know, Superman.
Yeah.
Like, he's pretty great. But again, that's where they got weird again later on with like nominating like Donald Trump, you know, like who didn't not for an acting, just for news footage. I mean, again, what are we doing here? You know, it's
Yeah,
very strange.
Malcolm brought that up in the
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
yeah.
know why you nominate people from documentaries, or why they do that. Nominating Mike Lindell. I mean, whether or not, you know, say what you will about the My Pillow guy, but come on, like, he made his own little documentary. Like, we shouldn't even
Right.
be talking about documentary. We shouldn't be talking about documentaries. Documentaries are documentaries. Like, that's just strange.
Oh, and I'm looking at, you know, the rest of those performances from 2020, and none of those movies were well received, and I think any one of those four could win. I mean, I don't know what you're expecting from Adam Sandler nowadays. I mean, he's not going to do an Uncut Gems performance
Yeah.
every time he's in a movie, but um,
Hmm.
like, I think at this point, Adam Sandler is just being Adam Sandler, and we have to just deal with it. You either like it or you don't like it.
You,
You're either going to
you,
watch it or
you
don't watch it.
yeah, you're either down with it or you're not.
Yeah.
And you know, again, I'm very 50-50 with his stuff, but it more has to do with the actual movies than him in the movies. But I just think I was just with him more before. You know, some of those movies, even Adam Sandler can fans can admit are lazy that he did just to go to the location. You know, for some of them, you know, he fully admits he did some of those movies to take his family on vacation, and they built a movie around it.
Mm,
So that's lazy. But you know, what are you going to do when you're getting paid $100 million for 5 or 6 movies? You know, it's like some of them are not going to be the greatest. It's just he's going to crank out something. So yeah, I don't know. That's most of the ones I had for actor and actress. I think we can move on to maybe director or picture. A lot of the directors and pictures kind of go hand in hand. So, you know,
yeah.
So I mean, we can kind of talk about both of them, but talking about specifically about directors and going to that, I mentioned Stanley Kubrick for The Shining. Again, say what you will about his method of and what he puts his actors through, but the work on the screen speaks for itself, and The Shining is an all timer. Brian De Palma in '83 for Scarface. That's strange.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
Scarface is a great movie. It's very well directed, and yeah, it's you know, either I mean that's another one where you're either on board with what Al Pacino's doing too or not. But that movie itself is a banger. It's a lot of fun. Um, so yeah, that one I had again just picking on Stallone, still just Stallone directing Rocky Four. The direction of that movie's good, you know, no
Hmm.
matter what you say. The fight scenes are well directed. A lot of those training montages are well directed. All that stuff is good, especially with him being in front of the camera as well as behind the camera. George Cosmatos for Rambo 2. Those action scenes are incredible, and some of the cinematography in that movie is great, and it's very very well shot. So that's very strange. And again, Last Action Hero, 1993, John McTiernan. McTiernan knows what he's doing. He's one of the all-time great action directors, and Last
Hmm.
Action Hero is a very well-directed movie. Schwarzenegger is very likable in it. A lot of the performances are fun. It's very self-aware, and that's one of those movies that has kind of aged very well, actually, in how ahead of its time it was. So I think people just weren't ready for it.
Yes, Malcolm. We brought that up at the beginning when talking about it. We definitely agree with that. Um,
Yeah, we agreed with them rescinding Shelley Duvall, yeah, for what she went through in that.
for
Yeah,
sure.
we mentioned that kind of at the beginning of the show. Yeah, she did not deserve that nomination for The Shining. That was very weird. So yeah, what did you have for director? Anything that stuck out with you? I mentioned a few of the old
Uh,
school ones.
yeah. I'll stick with one of the old school. I'll go Kenny Ortega for Newsies. I think Newsies
Hmm.
is a really great musical. I think the choreography alone in some of those sequences are is really fun. I don't think it's terribly directed at all. Um,
No.
I think he gets the most out of his actors and actresses. I think Christian Bale is fantastic in that movie. And it's kind of one of his
Mhm.
earlier roles. I think he's really good. So yeah, Kenny Ortega for Newsies. Um, we brought it up.
Lawrence Kasdan for Wyatt Earp. And so was Kevin Costner for Wyatt Earp. Look, Wyatt Earp. Look, Tombstone's the better movie. It's the more entertaining movie. But Wyatt Earp just got crapped on because it was more of a character study, kind of slow paced movie. But if anything, it's very well directed. Lawrence Kasdan
Mm,
directs the shit out of that movie. It looks great, and all the performances are good. So again, I don't know why they picked on Wyatt Earp when there was way worse movies. I mean, come on, you know, North is a worse movie that year, way worse movie. Like I mean, granted, Steven Seagal won for directing on Deadly Ground, so I can go with that because that's one of his worst movies in the '90s. But yeah, if you even nominate Lawrence Kasdan, that's a little weird.
um, I think, and this I might be alone in this one. I think Joel Schumacher for Batman and Robin. I don't agree because I think Joel Schumacher made the movie he wanted to make. It's a very fun movie, and
He
I think
he made the movie he wanted to make and the movie the studio told him to make. So when you find out more and more of what he was told to do as well by to direct a toy commercial, essentially, that's what he directed. So yeah, I mean, you know, yeah, it's Batman and Robin's Batman and Robin. I mean, I can't blame them for nominating Batman and Robin for a couple of different categories. That's fine. Um, I like Armageddon. I guess if people can't handle the bass style, that's fine, and especially nowadays. But back then, The Rock, Armageddon, really good stuff. Both of them. So I like both those movies and his direction with them.
mhm. We brought it up for actors. Zack Snyder for BVS.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll bring it up again.
Mhm.
It's uh, it's a really good movie. I really enjoy it. I think
I love BVS. I love BVS, but I know I'm somewhat in the minority, but I love BVS. I'm a big fan of it.
yeah. I mean you will hear nothing but love for BVS on the podcast about movies. That's for sure.
Nice.
Because
All
I
right.
think it's great too. I love
Works for
it.
me. Yeah.
I think. What do you think? Because I know I don't. And
Oh,
Malcolm, I know you're in.
this was the other one. Ron Howard for Da Vinci Code. Are you kidding me? Come on. Yeah, look, I've already said I'm a fan of movie 43. So and again, it's just people dogpiling on movie 43. But yeah, there was a slew of directors for movie 43. So that's very strange. I don't think it's directed worse than After Earth or Grown Ups too. So I mean, but there's not a lot to direct. It's a lot of just little segments that are kind of directed like sketches on SNL or something. So like that's I think the movie's exactly what it should be. But that's just them piling on a movie 43. So
Yeah, and I think I'm kind of mixing my director with the worst picture because I don't think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from
nope,
2014 is terrible at all.
nope.
I
I
think
know
it's a
Jordan would
it's a
disagree with us, but I
oh
think
right.
it's fine. I think it's
I think
entertaining.
it's entertaining. It's got some fun moments. It's somebody brought this up. The ones from the 90s aren't exactly great movies. That first one is really good, but um, I think we remember them for nostalgia, and rightfully so. I think we can enjoy things for nostalgia, absolutely.
Sure.
But are they of the highest quality? No. And so
Mm,
is this one? I'm not saying this one's better, but I find it to be on par with maybe Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the
yeah.
Use. And I really enjoy that one. So and I'm just a big Turtles fan anyway. I have the entire
Yeah.
cartoon series in like the van set. So
Oh
that's
yeah.
like one of
No,
my prized
that's
possessions.
fun. Hmm.
um, so I what what's funny to me is that this one was nominated, but the second one
The second
wasn't.
one wasn't. Yeah.
And was there just like terrible movies that year? Like what year even was that? Let me check real quick. The second one was it 2016? It was. So you're telling me that Batman vs Superman is worse than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows? I think not.
No, no, they
So,
should have replaced BVS with that amongst Independence Day Resurgence and Zoolander 2 and Gods of Egypt. Yeah, those are all poor movies. So yeah, that should have been replaced easily. Yeah, that's just dogpiling, and just weird stuff against Zack Snyder.
all right. Now I know we like to keep it mostly positive, but I do have to bring this comment up because I think
Mhm.
you will agree.
Oh, they should have been nominated for every movie they've ever done, ever. Date movie, epic movie, disaster movie, Meet the Spartans, Vampires Suck, whatever. Their entire filmography, every single one of the movies is worse than every movie on this list. Period. End of story. No debate. Every one of them is, and I think disaster movie was nominated and it lost to something. I gotta see what it lost to.
Disaster
Um,
movie.
yeah, it was on here somewhere. Oh my god, I'm missing it. What year was that?
It lost to the
Was
Love
that
Guru
See,
in
Love Guru is a better
2008.
movie than that. Love Guru is better than Disaster. Disaster Movie is not even a movie. Disaster Movie, there's no plot, there's no substance, there's no acting, there's no script, there's nothing. The Love Guru at least has the actors giving performances. Again, performances you may not like, deliveries you may not like, characters you may not love. But Disaster Movie and Love Guru is at least a coherent film. Disaster Movie is not a movie. The Hottie and the Naughty is not a movie. I don't know, you've never seen
Right.
it, but Hottie and the Naughty is worse. Uwe Boll's and the Name King is worse. The Happening is a curiosity, it's something. But Disaster Movie, to be fair, they nominated that and Meet the Spartans, which rightfully so. But both those should have won over Love Guru. That's The Love Guru was nowhere near as bad as either one of those movies.
Have you seen? Because I haven't seen it, so I want to hear your
Mhm.
thoughts if you've seen it. Have you
Yeah.
seen Mother?
Oh yeah. It's funny you should bring that up because Henry and I over on Let's Rank Stuff, we did Aronofsky recently on one of our episodes. So we did the Aronofsky filmography. The only one I had not seen on the list was Mother. Henry was a big fan of it, so he was genuinely curious as to what I thought of it. I remember people dogpiling it when it came out, giving it like I think one of those F cinema scores that's kind of notorious, on Cinema Score.
Mm.
Only occasionally one gets an F. That movie is perfectly fine. It is exactly like that movie is bonkers. It's crazy. It actually has legitimate tension. Now, where it goes, you may not vibe with what he's talking about. It's a lot of metaphorical stuff with like where Jennifer Lawrence is basically playing Mother Earth and Javier Bardem is playing God, and there's like all these people destroying their house, which is them destroying the earth, and all this like biblical metaphorical stuff or whatever. But it's a crazy movie, and but here's the thing: I was not unentertained by it. Let's say I was entertained by it the entire time. And to nominate Darren Aronofsky for worst director, certainly directing is not the thing wrong with that movie. That movie is perfectly finely directed and looks great.
Yeah, 'cause, when I see a name like Darren Aronofsky being nominated for worst director, I have to wonder like, is
Yeah.
it is there just something against him? Is there like what?
Well, it wasn't nominated for Best Picture because, yeah, you can't put Mother on the same level as the Emoji Movie and the Tom Cruise Mummy Movie and 50 Shades Darker and Transformers The Last Night. Like, no,
Right.
there's no way. Because I would rather watch Mother rather than any of those other movies right now.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any more that I'm too upset with. I mean, George Lucas for episode 1 and episode 2, I don't think they're like
No, I
five
don't think they're that
in the
bad.
bottom
I,
5 for directing,
I
but
I don't think they're overly great, but they're not overly bad either. They've
right.
kind of they a lot of people like those movies, and rightfully, there's things to like in those movies. I don't think they're the worst. Um, I think there's even been worse Star Wars movies, honestly. Just more boring ones in general. I'm not a
Mm,
big fan of Solo. I think that movie's really boring, but
uh,
that's
yeah,
is what it is.
I think it's
But yeah, I think
unnecessary.
yeah, but we can switch over to actual picture nominees and winners. And again, I started with old school, and it's a lot of ones we already brought up. They gave the actual trophy in 1985 to Rambo 2, which is ridiculous. It's a great action movie, and there's nothing like that's a fantastically directed and really entertaining action movie. Same with Rocky 4. That's just strange. 1986 nominating Cobra. Again, Cobra was kind of crapped on at the time, but it's since become like a cult classic, really fun, crazy, bonkers action movie. Although at least Howard the
Hmm.
Duck won, which I could understand Howard the Duck winning. I mean, that was a very strange movie at the time.
Yeah,
And,
that's a guilty pleasure of mine. I will not. I am
yeah,
not afraid to admit that I find some entertainment in that movie, but I definitely understand why it would win.
yeah.
But at the same time, I'm
Mhm.
like, I kind of like it.
I think
So,
the movie was made at the wrong time. Had they made a movie
mhm,
like that, in sort of the way that they did the cameo with Seth Green doing the voice at the one Guardians of the Galaxy movie,
mhm,
if they had done something like that and actually did a movie like nowadays, it would have been more well received.
yeah.
With comic book audiences now, but there were not a lot of comic book movies coming out in the mid to late '80s. So to throw one out there like that, it's like people didn't know what to think of it at the time, and it was just like a strange curiosity.
Mhm. If
Your Newsies got nominated in '92.
yeah.
I know you don't agree with that. I don't agree with Last Action Hero or Cliffhanger in '93. I think those are both really solid action movies.
Mhm.
Um, and that hold up pretty well. John Lithgow is awesome in Cliffhanger. That movie's good. The opening scene is still one of the best ones I've ever seen, as far as attention. '94, both The Specialist and Wyatt Earp. Again, they're just picking on Stallone. The Specialist is forgettable at best, but it's not like amazing, but it's fine. And Wyatt Earp is nowhere near bad and shouldn't be in the same category as North. North is one of the worst movies of all time. Like I said, 91, Episode 1, Blair Witch Project, and Big Daddy. I don't agree with any of those. I think Blair Witch Project still holds up. Big Daddy's, like we've already talked about that. And 2016 BVS. Like, it's just, yeah, ones that really, really stuck out to me. Anything I missed, would you have?
I have BVS. I think we've made that apparent. I don't agree with Episode 2. I don't think Attack of the Clones is one of the 5 worst movies from 2002. I don't think I disagree with Big Daddy from 99. I think it's one of Adam Sandler's better movies, along with Episode 1, like you mentioned. You brought up Newsies already. I'll bring up Star Trek 5. I think is a fine movie. I don't think it's a bad movie.
Star Trek 5 is a weird movie. It's a very strange movie. It's definitely the strangest of the Star Trek movies, dealing with like God in a starship. It's just a weird movie, and it's got some very weird sequences, like the erotic dance that Uhura does in that movie is very strange. There's some weird scenes in that movie, but yeah, I mean, even the worst Star Trek movie is better than a lot of movies.
Yeah. And if you watched our sequel episode that we did with Jordan, you would know that I absolutely love Caddyshack 2.
Oh, April Fool's, right? That's right. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah. Oh, April Fool's.
April Fool's. Oh yeah, bye.
From this year, Space Jam, A New Legacy. I don't agree with that. I don't think it's one of the. I think, like we said at the beginning, I think it's fine. It's I when I first watched it, I was disappointed. I will admit that I was disappointed. I wanted something better. Because LeBron James was semi-talented in Trainwreck. I think he was pretty good in Trainwreck, but he wasn't the leading man in Trainwreck. He was a supporting role, and he didn't have to carry the movie. But I think it's fine. I think he did fine being asked to act with cartoon characters.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, the basketball stuff I think is great. Once the basketball game started, I thought the movie really picked up.
I really like the basketball sequence in that one, the actual game. Like the way it's kind of more of a video gamey thing where they've got like power ups and boosts and kind of stuff, like all that kind of stuff. I actually kind of dug that. The fact that they can like turbo boost, like NBA Jam or something and do like a monster dunk. Like I thought that was kind of fun and incorporated the video game aspect of it pretty well. So, but yeah, this isn't a podcast about Space Jam 2. Just wanted to back you up. I just wanted to back you up on that. I don't think that movie's that bad either. It's fine.
I think that was all I had besides Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 2014.
Okay, I at least see the Vampire Suck was nominated, so that's at least something. Yeah. I was just scrolling to see if Epic Movie was nominated. I don't think it was, which it should have been. Well, Epic Movie should have been nominated instead of House of Wax. So the House of Wax remake is actually a lot of fun as well. It should have taken the place of that one in 2005. So there you go.
Yeah. And I might be in the minority on this one, but I don't think Pixels is a bottom of 5 movie of 2015. I'm not going to say it's a great movie. I might not even call it a good movie. I will call it an okay, fine movie.
That's more just whatever Adam Sandler released that year. It happened to be Pixels, but Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 is way worse. Jupiter Descending is way worse. 50 Shades of Grey way worse, and Fan Four Stick way worse. So at least they got the winners correct. But yeah, nominating Pixels. I saw it in a hotel room recently. I hadn't seen it since it came out, and I ended up watching like an hour of it. It was fine. It was entertaining enough. The weirdest thing about that is Kevin James being the president. That's just
that is an odd choice.
just odd. I don't know why they can't just be these 4 friends and have like Brian Cox be the president, because Brian Cox is in that movie. Why couldn't Brian Cox just be the president? You know what I mean? And then have him, bring these guys in and they all be the video game guys. That just is a strange choice. But other than that, like, yeah, it's an okay sequence. I think the Pac-Man sequence is pretty great. The driving sequence is pretty good. There's good stuff in that movie. So yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I don't really see any more that I am too upset with. I think most of the winners, I think they got it right. I mean, maybe I disagree with Wild Wild West, but it's been so long since I've seen it that maybe upon a rewatch I will agree with them. I don't know.
Out of the nominations, The Haunting is the worst movie out of those nominations. The Liam Neeson, Owen Wilson haunted house movie is very, very bad. That's the one that should be the winner there.
All right. Well,
yeah, I mean that was
really
most of the main ones. The only other thing I wanted to bring up is they gave out occasional special Oscars. One that I vastly disagree with: the 1996 worst movie that grossed over $100 million for Twister. Twister is a really fun movie.
Yeah,
Twister is an awesome movie. It's one of my it's in my top 64. I love Twister. I definitely disagree with that. Twister is damn entertaining. One of the best disaster movies, especially in the 90s.
There's a restaurant. I might have told this story before. There's a restaurant in the next town over from me, or not even in the next town. It's like between, and it's called the Quesadilla Factory. And I would go there almost every Friday with a group of friends. A few years back, and they would always play a movie on like this. It was like a 32-inch TV that they had mounted on the wall next to the counter where you ordered. And for the longest time, the movie was Twister. And so sometimes I would just go in just to watch Twister.
30 minutes of Twister. Yeah.
And then they cycled through with Transformers and National Treasure. And I'm not sure what it is now because they're still open.
I think I told you this. There's a steakhouse called Binion's near me that every time we go in there, we get set near the TV that's playing Tombstone on a loop. So we're always watching Tombstone when we go in there. But yeah, something similar.
Ooh, I just saw a comment, and I'm curious to hear your reaction. And
look, Date Movie was the one that I believe they first did, and Date Movie started out as a genuine sort of parody of rom-coms, so there's a few decent jokes in there, but Epic Movie is while it's not as horrendous as Disaster Movie, it's almost as unwatchable. I think Date Movie or Epic Movie is still pretty bad, me personally. So I think most of the Friedberg Seltzer stuff is atrocious. Those guys are a stain on the movie business.
One that I just came. I don't know how I didn't see this before. Friday the 13th in 1980 being nominated.
To be fair, that movie is not great. The movie is mostly remembered when you sit down and watch it. It's not even one of the best Friday the 13th movies. The original one, it's mostly remembered because of the sort of twist that Mrs. Voorhees is the actual killer, which was kind of inventive at the time. That it was like this older lady. There are some good effects on the kills, and it has the one jump scare at the end with Jason popping out of the lake. That's most of the stuff that people remember. The actual movie is not great. To be fair, it's not, even amongst Friday the 13th fans, it's probably in the bottom half of Friday the 13th movies overall. Most of the sequels are better. Part 2 is better. Part 4 is better. Part 6, Part 7. I'm a horror guy. You know me. So even if I were to rank the Friday the 13th, the original one would probably be in the bottom half somewhere. Okay. So it's not great. It's not up there with Halloween. People who compare it to Halloween or compare it to original Texas Chainsaw Massacre or anything like that, it's not even close. Quality wise. Yeah.
I always like to defer to you on the horror stuff because I'm a very casual horror fan. I remember watching Friday the 13th and liking it, but again, casual horror fan. So,
Well, maybe one day we'll talk about one of the major horror franchises, and you can kind of work your way through one of the series, gradually or something like that, and we can talk about like whatever franchise specifically and talk about some of the movies within it or something.
yeah,
If you ever want to.
I have some of them right here on that second shelf. I have the Conjuring franchises there. I have the first 8 Friday the 13th. That's the only set I could find. I have all the
That's the one
Halloween.
that
I've seen.
Well, the Friday the 13th set is strange because the first 8 you can find the set pretty cheap. You can find it for like $20 for like the first, and then it gets into weird rights issues because the original 8 were Paramount movies, and then at number 9, the Jason Goes to Hell, they sold to New Line, which owned the Nightmare on Elm Street franchises, which is why at the end of Jason Goes to Hell they have the teaser with the Freddy glove coming up through the ground and pulling down the hockey mask. It was teased even back in 1993, a Freddy versus Jason. And then New Line went on to do Freddy versus Jason and the remake. So when you see those sets, that's because those first 8 were a Paramount set. So they can constantly re-release those under the Paramount label. And then you have to buy those other ones separately, except for the rare occasion of the Scream Factory Friday the 13th set that I have, which was $100, but it's the Scream Factory set, but it includes the special editions of all of them, including the remake and Friday the 13th, and Freddy vs. Jason and Jason Goes to Hell. So they were able to make a deal on that. But for the most part, you can find 1 through 8 pretty easily. That's because they were all the same company.
Yeah, I've had that set for a while now. So yeah, no, that would be fun. I think a franchise that I want to watch that I haven't yet. I recently got the set is the Leprechaun series.
If you want to, I'll do it with you because I've seen them all. I've seen them all.
It would give me an excuse to watch them, but no, that does sound like a good idea. We can talk about that more for sure.
I was just Googling to see when the next actual Friday the 13th is, and it's actually not far off. We could do it on May 13th, Friday the 13th, if you wanted to talk about, or on a Saturday the day after, if you wanted to talk Friday the 13th, around the Friday the 13th, we could do that. Ooh. So if you wanted to plan ahead, it's about a month, so you would have time to kind of watch the movies, maybe like 2 a week, and you could get through them. So if you wanted to.
I would be totally on board if I wasn't out of town that weekend.
Okay, well, we can do it the weekend. We can do it the weekend after that, and still be somewhat topical, and then give you an extra week to watch them. But only if you wanted to plan that ahead, so you could start watching them and watch like 2 a week. But I will say they're very easy breezy to watch. They're all like 90 minutes. They're all 85, 90 minutes. They're a breeze. There's a kill every 10 minutes. That's the formula. So it's pretty entertaining. Cliche characters, a couple of boobs popping out, gory kills. 90 minutes, you're done. So there you go.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about. We can talk about that. But as for the Razzies, this was a fun conversation. And kind of nice to hear about some movies that I haven't seen that I'll probably give a watch because reviews aren't always the best to go off of. Make your own opinions, people. Watch movies.
If anything that these shows that Henry and I do and this one do is you find out about a lot of movies that I have passions for that a lot of people don't. So you get those recommendations, as we do with, where I rank some of the stuff on Henry's show and some of the things I brought up on our A to Z and our years things. I bring up some kind of out there movies or movies that are kind of underseen. So I always like to shine light on some of those movies. So and some of the ones I talked about tonight, like Cobra and Cliffhanger and whatever else, a couple of things here and there, but Rambo 2, things like that, Last Action Hero. I'm fans of those movies. I think those movies are fun and they do exactly what they want to do. So, and sometimes that's all you want. I don't go into Cobra looking for high art. I go into Cobra looking for Sylvester Stallone putting on a pair of aviator shades and a bunch of black leather and hunting down a serial killer and shooting people with a machine gun. That's what I look for in a movie called Cobra. That's what the poster looks like. That's what I expect from the movie. That's what it delivers. So, I'm not looking for a great drama. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. All right. So this was good. Be
Mhm.
sure to. So you mentioned you and Henry. Are we going to see a new episode of Let's Ring Stuff soon?
We think we're going to do one next week. He was taking care of a living situation he was having a rough time with, where he had to get a new living situation. But we believe we are going to on Wednesday night finally get back to it, and we're going to be doing Thomas Anderson finally. So, which
All
is
right.
kind of we did Indy versus Mummy last time we did the franchise one. That was more of a me episode. This one's going to be more of a him episode. He's a much bigger fan of PTA than I am. But we'll still talk about it. I watched them all, so yeah, we'll be ranking that. Yeah, sounds
All
good.
right. Yeah, and as usual, tier ranker tournament fights usually Tuesdays and Fridays. Next week it'll be. Is it going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday since today's was rescheduled?
I
Do you know?
believe next week I can pull up the calendar. I believe next week we have one on Tuesday night. We have the rom-com tournament championship. We on Wednesday night we're doing um, the Oscar shows for I believe like 1989, 1977, but it's going to be a short bracket. It's going to be a 32 because they're quite frankly movies that people don't talk about and have never heard of on there.
Right.
So if we include every single one of them, all the nominations, we're going to have a lot of blank stares, and I've never seen that sort of thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with all the winners. Obviously, all the winners should be in the tournament. So all the winners from those years, even if they're not super well known, should obviously be represented, and then all the sort of ones that have some kind of name recognition or name value.
Mhm.
So we're going to throw those into 32. So that's what we're going to do. And then Friday will be our tier ranker sports championship. We've been doing all the sports movies in the different categories, and we're going to
Mhm.
take the top 60 of those because we did 6 of those, including the most recent combat sports, and throw those and determine the top 10 best sports movies of
Nice.
all time. So that's what's coming up on
Well,
that.
I will be tuning into that one for sure.
hmm
Um,
Well,
it's
I mean, I would say that White Man Can't Jump has a good chance of making that top 10 because
I would
I
agree.
think it's the best. I think it's the best basketball movie that's ever been made. So that's me personally.
It's it's my second favorite, but I can definitely understand why people would have it as the best for sure.
We had it at number one. We had Hoosiers at number two. So if you're thinking of
Yeah,
Hoosiers, I get it. But we just think White Men Can't Jump is more entertaining
yeah,
overall than
no,
Hoosiers.
no, I agree because I,
So
I was on that episode. I was on the
yeah.
basketball episode. I
Uh-huh.
agree. My personal favorite is Coach Carter, but again, that's a personal
Mm,
choice. As far as what's the more entertaining, it's definitely White Men
hmm
Can't Jump.
There you
So
go.
yeah, I am curious to see if that one makes it. Yeah, there's a lot of good sports movies out there, so that should be a fun time. Um,
All
as
right.
far as
So as far as next week for here, have we thought about what topic we want to do for our next show? I've got a list of topics here. I could throw a couple of them out there and see what sticks.
Yeah,
We've
let's do that.
got we've got we've still got our Redux episode we need to do, which we will definitely get to at some point. We were reduxing our some of our ones we hadn't seen from our year's episode. We could do our actors' favorite and least favorite movies of theirs. If we listed our favorite actors, I could go back on my tournament fights and look up that. We could do movies that were ahead of their time. We could do movies with kinder trauma. Kinder trauma is, things you saw when you were a kid that stuck with you. That scary
Oh yeah,
sequences that stuck with you from as a kid, either from actual scary movies or not scary movies, not intended to be scary. We could do movies that deserve a sequel that never had one.
ooh,
Um, you want to do that?
oh, that one sounds fun.
So movies that either needed a sequel or deserved a sequel, or movies that you have ideas for sequels. However you
Right.
want to work that. Movies that never got a sequel that you would have liked to see a sequel to. We could do that.
I like that idea.
We could call it the sequels that never were, or something
There
like
we
that.
go.
So,
There we go.
yeah.
I like it.
All right. We've been talking about sequels a lot lately, but this one's a hypothetical one. Ones we
Yeah.
would like to see one for, or movies that we think are great, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, maybe they were a box office bomb. Maybe they weren't received critically at the time, but maybe had better critical reception later, and just didn't get a sequel at the time. Whatever it is, we could talk about that.
Hmm.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. So we'll pencil that in. Probably be on our normal day next week. There was nothing going on tonight, so I figured let's
Hmm.
hop
Why
on
not?
tonight and do this.
Well, there was no tournament fights or Raker fights tonight because Jordan's out of
Yeah.
town. So yeah, we're taking over the channel tonight and doing a podcast about movies
Mhm.
because why not? It's still giving me a show. So there you
Yeah.
go.
And I will be busy tomorrow, and with the time we usually go, but I will be on Raincome talking Jim Carrey with Malcolm, who was in the chat. I don't know if he
Well,
still
I'll
is,
be
but
I'll turn that on and listen to that while I'm playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey some more tomorrow. So I'll be listening to that in
nice,
the background. That sounds good.
nice.
Which is what I've been doing pretty much all week. So yeah. All right.
And of course, I have the Lonely Marks podcast with Jordan Owens and Richie Goodacre. We just did an episode yesterday talking about tag teams. So go check that out. It was a fun time. Um,
And I'll pop in occasionally on that when I actually watch something.
right. But
Like WrestleMania. I watch WrestleMania. So maybe if I watch SummerSlam, I'll pop in and talk for SummerSlam eventually
there
when
you
that
go.
rolls around.
So in 4 months, you can see Austin back on
Well,
the
or
pod.
if we do like we've been talking about doing, if we do a one big epic roundtable episode where we all each do our top 10 favorite matches of all time, I
Oh
could
yeah,
definitely pop in
yeah,
on that one and do that because we want to do that because that could be wildly different between each person
that could be.
as far as just the oeuvre of professional wrestling in general. It could be damn near anything. So yeah, we'll do
Yeah,
that at some point. That
especially
sounds
with
like
how
fun.
many good wrestling promotions there are nowadays.
Or
So
even old school. I might have a couple of
yeah,
old school
even
matches on there
yeah,
from old NWA or WCW or things like that. So or Japan, I could have some matches from everywhere. So yeah.
yeah. So we say all that, and if you want to watch all of that, you gotta like and subscribe. You gotta like if you hit the bell, you'll know when we go live. And
Hmm.
there's no better way to end this than to
See,
see me
I
getting
even
something
hit
out
the
of my.
bell and I'm on the shows so that I get alerts on my phone when I've got my phone next to me that we're going live, even if I'm already know we're going live. See, that's the good thing about having the bell is when we go live, you can jump in and do like Malcolm and Jonathan tonight, drop a comment, and well, Jacob's very good about highlighting those and us talking about them. So yeah, feel free, please.
Yeah. So do all that, and we're gonna end this with me trying to get something out of my eye. So if I can see the end broadcast, that's where it is. All right. So that is Austin. I am Jacob, and keep talking about movies and don't get stuff